It is time to be completely wrong about the brand new Duel Links ban list coming out in, we assume, 1 to 2 weeks time. As always, the case of Grand Tournament has ended, and it is our last ban list before Worlds, right? So it's got to be a good one. Now, if we go and look real quick at last year's ban list, this was on July 9th, it came into effect, and this was the big one that banned Hey Trunade. There wasn't much else that really had a huge meta impact, right? It was just Trunade. I think we're in for a bit of a different story because of where we are right now, and because of the best decks ever right now, and because of how dominant in the KC Grand Tournament 2 decks were, and even on ranked, one of them is super prevalent and needs to be hit. So let's go first of all to the Forbidden. Literally nothing. Nothing changes, nothing needs to be banned, we're okay for the moment. The Limited One, I think we're going to get a card off, and I did this last time. I think we're going to get the Legendary 6 Samurai Nishi back to 1. Now this would be a pretty big change for 6 Samurais because if you look at the deck right now, they're playing 1 Inishi and 1 Dojo. And so if you give Inishi to 1, then they can play 2 Dojo again, which is going to be really big for them. Now, some of the decks are running Reborn, and so this would cut out Reborn, but you don't need Reborn as shown here by this one playing Veil. And so I think Inishi to 1 is long overdue, and they can give us the Xyz, and it will be all fine and dandy. It won't be a top tier deck, but it'll just be a little more relevant, but not relevant at all really still. But let's move on to our Limit 2, starting off with DDD. This deck is, this is beyond impressive, right? For ladder and for the KC Grand Tournament, it was one of the best decks, and I think for Limit 2 is the easiest option is to go for the Dark Contract with the game. You've got 6 star cards in the deck, right? If you're limiting it to 5, that is a bit of a hit, but not as bad as going the other way around, right? If you were to hit the Savant Kepler to 2 and this to 3, then you're going to be limiting your Pendulum summons in future turns. So this is very important to keep in mind when trying to balance this deck, I think. The bigger thing is going for the skill, and Commander Doom King is so good because it does give you access to a generic extra deck. Now, what would you do? You would just make it so they can only play DDDs, or I think a nice give and take is Dark Xyz only, like Dark cards only, right? So they can play Sanafond, they can play their Zombie Stein, but they can't play their Coach King, they can't play the Galaxy Cards package. I think that's a fair enough trade and wouldn't kill the deck, right? It wouldn't murder them, they wouldn't be tier 1. This deck's been around for 8 months now, obviously not in the full power, right? Of course, we got the structure about 8 months ago now, and so they've been around, they've been up and down, and I think I don't want to see them in the Worlds race, and if they do survive this hit, then I think for sure on the September balance before Reigns, they will be hit, and it'll be a bad hit. So, looking forward to that one. Then again, on Limit 2s, we have Burning Abyss. This has been very good with the introduction of Beatrice, Lady of the Eternal. I think, again, Limit 2 to remove access to the Inner Controller, to remove Kite Roid, you're going to go for something like the Farfa. It's a rare, it's free to play, and you hitting it will hit the power of the deck. You could also go for the Seer, and go for the consistency of the deck, which either option kind of works, right? I think if you're the opponent, you'd much rather them hit the Farfa, right? Because that's one less disruption you have to deal with. And so I think either way kind of works, but I think also they need skill nerfs, right? First of all, draw since high level. This should have been changed ages ago. I've been asking for the past card ban lists to make this be 1500 life points so you can't trigger it very easily with a skill. I think that is more than fair enough. Also, the other skill they have, the Mind of the Planar, that banishes a card permanently from the game, is so strong, but they evidently don't need it, right? They don't need it to be good. And so they could hit that skill and give area life point restriction. I don't think it's 100% needed, but I think they might do that to that skill. Also, I'm going to bring up now, is do they go all the way like they did with Phantom Knights, and do they add a Limit 3 to the deck? So you can't play in this deck, you can't play Levianeer. And in DDDs, although not in this list, you wouldn't be able to play something like Floodgate, which works pretty well with the defense position kind of piercing deck, that strategy. So would they go and then put something like Kepler to 3? Or in Burning Abyss, you could put the other one, like if you're hitting Farfa, put Seer to 3. If you're hitting Seer, put Farfa to 3. And that would kind of remove Levianeer. They seem to not like Levianeer being in decks, and so that would make sense. Also, while we're on it, White Princess. This, I think, has a good chance of going to 3 or to 2. If it goes to 2, it is a better hit, right? Because most decks right now are playing this with Kiteroid, and giving 5 stall cards in the deck is not nice, and so limiting it to 2 would make that happen. Now, it would be a bit of an F in the chat for, of course, Skull Servants, which do need this card quite a bit, so if they put it limit 3, then this does also then clash with Divine Ear, and would clash with anything else they put in, right? If they put a card limit 3, this would clash as well. So either way, I think it's fine, but if they want to go against this and Kiteroid, then limit 2, but again, it depends how used this card was in KCGT. That is super important. And of course, because I have to mention it, for limit 2, Magician's Rod. I don't think this is as needed now, thanks to Spellbook of Knowledge. Of course, if you had this, it would be played, because Star Magician require pretty much 3 navigation. You don't need this as much as you did beforehand, because you have got that search engine, that draw engine, which is so powerful. So I would like to see this card come back. It would make my day. It would be a bit of a hit for decks that do play 3 copies, but as you're seeing here, there's not many decks that are playing it. Some are playing it at 1 because you can do, because the thing is, the important thing is navigation. I say every time, I'm sure it's not going to happen, but if it does, I'll be very, very happy. Gen X Controller, off the list. To 3, you know, off the list completely, right? This, or to limit 3, if they want to do it to limit 3, if they want to do that. It's been beyond time. I think everyone kind of predicts this as this should come back, because Chris John still wouldn't be great with it at 3, right? But it's just a card that can come back and be fairly okay hit. I'm sure Konami will do a ton of other changes we don't like kind of predict, and will be kind of random to us, but let's go on to the other skills first of all with Master of Paladin Fusion. This is the most bullshit skill in the game, because in terms of like how bad it is, right? This needs to be changed to do one of 2 things, I think. First of all, this line here about the extra deck, you need to be able to use things like Dark Cavalry in the deck, right? For starters, that needs to happen. Secondly, you need to be able to special summon on your opponent's turn, because this deck lets you use your navigation, and if you can't use the main part of navigation for the banish effect, right, like the summoning opponent's turn, and then circle for the banish effect, then what good really is it? It's really not. And so it really limits how good this deck can be, which isn't going to be good, right? I'm just going to state this now. This deck, this skill needs to be changed in 5,000 different ways for it to be good. But make it a little bit better, right? You kind of did that with the Obelisk skill, and so just changing this a little bit would be much appreciated. Then onto some skills that people are thinking could be hit, but also I think, probably not. First of all, this Phantom strategy for the Phantom Knights. Now, I thought initially that they would just go for limit 2 and then hit the skill. And the skill, if it would be hit, would be changed so that your rank 4 restriction also applies to rank 3. So you can't go turn 1 into the Leviair and also search out your Fogblade, right? You had to choose between going for your Fogblade or going for Leviair. And I think that it doesn't matter anymore, right? Because this deck has fallen off so hard, and so I think they're fine as is. No need to hit Phantom Knights. If they do get hit, then okay, but again, I think they don't really need it. Then we have Gandora with Determination to Fight, and it's still, I feel, a bit too early to hit this skill, even more so, and I think the way you do it is you either go for a twice per duel skill rather than 3 times, and also you change it so that it's more in line with what the Gandora is, right, which is a high risk, high reward OTK blowout. And so if you're giving the deck access to these extra deck cards, it's like, what is going on? This is a Yugi skill. Yugi didn't use Xyzes in the anime, and so make it so you can't play Xyzes in your extra deck, right? This would fundamentally make this skill a OTK or bust skill. It would make it so fun, but also would make it a lot less bullshit than it currently is. It would kill it, you know, in terms of viability, but like it would be a fun skill rather than a competitively bullshit skill that I don't mind. I personally don't mind the skill now, right? We've got cards that can kind of deal with Gandora a bit easier, and so I don't mind it. But I know people do, and so if they do want to hit it, that's one way, but do I think they will? Probably not. And finally is Galaxy Photon. Now, this skill is brand new. They will not hit this skill, but I think the big thing with this skill is that this should be changed to require Photon or Galaxy monsters, not just Galaxy cards, right? That means you can just play like a very small lineup of monsters, right? This is what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 monsters and 14 back row. And if you're forced to playing 10 monsters, it would reduce consistency quite a bit. There's no doubt about it. But it will bring it in more in line with being an anime skill, and so I think over time, that'll be the direction they go around with it, right? That'll be what happens, but will it happen now? Probably not. I'll give it until, like, you know, Brains World, or maybe even the one after that. They might want to keep around for a while, because it is definitely selling, it's doing well on ladder, it's doing well in KC Grand Tournament, and so, yeah. That is my quick-fire balance predictions, kind of all over the place, but there'll be a graphic on screen right now showing off all of the predictions and what I think is going to be hit and changed and all that kind of thing. Let me know down below what you think of the ban list and what you think is going to happen, because it should be a fun time. Last year's was on June 25th, so we've got about a week and a half, 2 weeks away until we do see the ban list, potentially, so yeah. Thanks for watching, I'll see you all in the next Duel Links video. See you then.